That's my buddy playing in the middle of fucking nowhere. I don't know how the hell. Some people are not afraid of heights at all. And to me, it's like one of the scariest fucking things in the world to do. So I had this discussion with my friends about what happens is if you're someone that society would consider like a nice person, someone that is overly giving, you want to make sure everyone's happy, all that stuff, then you're probably going to struggle majorly with assertiveness. So let me put it this way. The easiest way to put it is that certain people will struggle with certain things. So in your case, you might struggle with assertiveness, you might not. But if you're someone that's considered generally a nice person, then you're probably going to struggle with being an assertive person. If you're someone that's like an asshole-ish person, you're probably going to be assertive, but you're not going to be delicate to other people's situations, as in you won't be able to be a nice person. So each person has their own crux. For me, someone that, like, again, being an overly giving kind of person, it's very hard, because if you want the group to, have fun, then you want to be catering to everyone else's needs. But by the very nature of doing it and not imposing your will, you're not being assertive. So how the fuck does one even look at this? God damn. Let me see if I can get a shoot maybe this way. And I walk that way. Alright, it doesn't matter. So how does one even become assertive? I was watching this Elliot Hulse video. If you know Elliot Hulse, this guy, he's like self-help and stuff. And one of the things he talks about is you don't necessarily have to be aggressive in order to be assertive. You just have to let your boundaries known. And whichever way you let your boundaries know or be known is going to be different for each person. So in my case, because I'd say like just my general demeanor or manner of speaking is overly polite. So for me, even though I have to be assertive, it's not going to sound the same as someone whose demeanor might be more neutral or more aggressive from the get-go. So when I talk about assertiveness, it's more like literally what's on your mind. Don't compromise your values for the group. That's the core of assertiveness. To be able to put yourself first in a situation where there might be conflict of resolution or conflict of interest. So how do you do that without losing friends, right? Because that's the biggest struggle, I think. Check this out. There's scenic spots like this all over. This thing it's called Mather Point, I think. But this is like the southern spot of the Grand Canyon, the most popular spot. People come camping here and stuff. But if you look at the core of it, like let's say you're friends with a bunch of people. Sorry, bro. And they want to all go for sushi and you want to eat burgers or something. Generally, you're going to have two reactions to any sort of push that you do. And one of those reactions is acceptance or compliance. And the other one is, resistance. Someone will be like, hey, man, I'm tired of burgers. I want goddamn sushi. So that's where assertiveness becomes difficult. So this is one of those points that I actually struggle with myself. Because how the hell do you be assertive, right? Oh, that's the Mather Point that I was talking about. Let's go down there. Because at the core of assertiveness, you are kind of imposing your will onto the situation. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to do that. Because at the end of the day, really, if you look at your entire life, you only live it through your eyes. So all perspective comes from what you feel is right and what you feel is wrong. So the opposite side of it is that when you don't feel like you're being assertive, then you feel guilty for going with the group. So it's one of those things, like if you deny your true self, like whatever you really want to do, you're sacrificing a part of your integrity for someone else, maybe a thing, an organization, a group, could be anything. But you also lose a bit of your assertiveness in doing so. So compliance and assertiveness are kind of like the two opposites of the same sword or blade or whatnot. So when it comes to, especially people that you care about, it's hard to be assertive because you kind of want to cater to whatever their needs are. But at the end of the day, you lose out on yourself the more you sacrifice yourself for others. So when it goes back to this topic of assertiveness, why is it that nice people have it difficult or find it difficult to be assertive in general? I think it goes with the whole like sheep and wolf analogy. So if you're like sheepish, then you're more compliant, and if you're more lionish, then you're more assertive. But I think those terms, both of them, are actually not necessarily the best terms to use, because really assertiveness doesn't necessarily mean any sort of like aggression or anything like that. It more means that you're kind of allowing yourself to hold on to the boundaries that you want. Let me show you this right now. Look at this. All this was underwater. What the fuck? And they have rails now. Before they didn't have guardrails. Okay, let me get you a good spot here. Show you a little bit of... Oh, that's cool. Wow. I don't know if you can see, my buddy's playing there all the way to the end. Crazy. Crazy.
And not trying to. Still no one can. Isn't it? Yeah, that's where we should go one day to Chennai and see. Let's do one now again.
Alright, so going back to the assertiveness topic. So it's one of those things, even Elliot Hulse himself says, excuse me, thanks. He goes himself, it's like you don't necessarily have to be a dick or like go out of your way to like push on someone and to be like, hey, I gotta impose my way. No, it's more like, it's a subtle kind of thing, which is you're allowing everyone to be in their space, but you're also allowing yourself to be in your space. And if you can do that, that's the whole, like the real definition of someone who's an assertive person. Because you're not really being a pushy person necessarily, but at the same time, you're not being a pushover. That's the biggest problem. Most people who are overly polite, I think that's what we struggle with. We're like, generally speaking, being a pushover, it's like, it's a horrible term in the beginning, but like, if you think about what it is at the core, you're basically compliant versus, what's the other one? Compliant or aggressive, right? So you're being compliant to the situation, and therefore you get the label of being a pushover. But if you really think about it, all you really did was you were compliant against what you wanted to be compliant with. So lots of things, like let's say, going back to the sushi example, let's say you want to eat sushi. You don't have to be a dick and be like, no, we gotta go burgers. No, you can just comply. And that has nothing to do with assertiveness, because you're just living your life. So when it comes to the whole notion of like having boundaries and being like, hey, these are the solid boundaries that I won't compromise on, that's really what the core of what you need to focus on is. In my case, there's a few things. Like when it comes to food, I'm very open-minded. I can eat pretty much anything. But when it comes to my YouTube, I kind of have to be very, not necessarily assertive, but just very, very on point with what I'm doing. Because if I'm not, then guess what? The content doesn't get made. And so I can't do anything that's productive if I'm not assertive when it comes to things that I'm truly passionate about. So that's one thing, when you're assertive in work. But when it comes to like relationships and people, that's a whole different ballgame. Because how can you be, it's not that how can you, it's more like you don't necessarily want it. You want to comply and you want to give people what they want. Because why wouldn't you if you really like them? All right, let's see this spot too. Let's do a little right here. Look at that, it just drops off. Crazy. Fucking scared of heights like no tomorrow. So this shot is actually really tough to get. Sorry, man. Okay, check this out.
All these people. Yeah.
All right, so So what's one of the things you can do to be more assertive in your life? Well, it's pretty straightforward. You kind of have to start taking steps. The first thing is identification, pretty much with all things. You're gonna have to figure out where your weaknesses are in the first place. So for me, I always thought I was relatively assertive. But when people are like, oh man, you're so nice, you're like too nice. And like, if I ask for feedback, they're like, well, if you were, you know, one area of focus, if I could help you on is maybe be a bit more assertive in the situation. So why am I getting that kind of feedback in the first place? Well, it's because they're noticing that I'm sacrificing over and over again my own perspective for what the group wants. So people don't necessarily want that if you think about it. People want, oh, yo, I ain't done cardio for so long, that little steps, I lost my breath, crazy shit. Yeah, so if you think about it, people don't necessarily want, they want you to be as much yourself because everyone loves predictable behavior. So when someone isn't like a wild bag or isn't all over the place, that's actually a nice thing. The more you fix yourself, the parts of yourself that might be considered a weakness, the more you become truly yourself. So in my case, my assertiveness comes from the fact that, you know, again, when I put the camera on my face and I'm making my YouTube videos, that's easy as hell. But when it comes to people that are like close to me or people that I care about, and then they have an opposing opinion or belief, that's when it gets a bit more tricky and tough. Because, like, again, if you care about someone, you're willing to sacrifice parts of your core beliefs to, you know, hang out with them. And maybe that there is the real problem. The fact that you sacrifice any part of yourself for someone else, maybe that's the crux of the nice person. The main issue is that you're too compromising and not assertive enough. Could be a fucking million things, to be honest. But this is one of those areas that if you don't fix it, if you're not assertive, then you're not only going to be a pushover, but the whole world is going to be not necessarily against you, but the whole world will push to you. The more I talk about this topic, the more complicated it gets, because what's the whole idea of being yourself? Being yourself is actually way harder than you think, because not everything that you are and not everything that you want to be or maybe express in a certain situation is necessarily the most friendly or the most like peaceful kind of circumstance. So you do have to go through conflict if you're assertive. That's unavoidable. You're here for a limited time, like a very limited time. What you do at that time, you better fucking make use of it, because if you don't use it correctly, you're gonna die, and that's it. So every single time that you feel like, hey, I've compromised my beliefs, my values for someone else or something else, and you weren't assertive, you were more compliant, only you feel bad. No one else cares. The world fucking moves on. Everybody else is thinking you're fine, but deep inside, you're slowly sacrificing your integrity. So really ask yourself, if you're one of those people, in my case, I'm one of those people that struggle with assertiveness. People like us, we gotta ask ourselves, hey, what is it that I wanna do? And then from there, take it forward. Because again, if you're someone that is struggling with this, most likely you have other skills, like your people pleaser skills. You're good at being friendly to people. You're good at being friendly to the world, and so therefore you're not a threat. How fucking weird that you want to be a threat. You want to be dangerous. You want to be slightly dangerous. Otherwise, you're a pussy, yo. Whoa, shit. Whoa, shit. See how far I can go. So, to conclude, when it comes to assertiveness, all you have to do, if you're a nice person, is just really ask yourself what the fuck you want to do. And then the second thing that you have to do is you have to vocalize what you want to do in the correct way. That's it. If you don't vocalize it, no one's going to know what your opinion is. And if your opinion isn't put out, guess what? You're just sacrificing your integrity because you think people might conflict with it. Oh, what the fuck? I think you can see my buddy there, the edge. Sometimes I make these videos, so I watch them and I look at it and I'm like, wow, okay, so these are the areas I gotta focus on myself. Yo, Andrew! Bro, did you change spots? Oh, okay, this is the spot. Yeah, I'm finishing up the video on assertiveness. But goddamn. All right, let's meet up with a friend.
We were originally over here, but I thought, that looks nicer.
Okay.
Would you like to move back there?
No, dude, this is the best spot. In fact, this actually works out way better because we can shoot the final shot here and I can set up the camera there.
Cool.
It's perfect.
Right.
Yeah, so let me just finish up the final shot here real quick. Like.
Yeah. Do your thing.
All right, let's see if I can get that view.
Are you feeling anything yet?
I am feeling nothing. This fucking acid did nothing to me, bro. Are you feeling anything?
A little bit, but not a lot. Yeah, it's very mild.
All right, so final note about assertiveness. Let me walk away from this, give you a little view. Remember, always do whatever the fuck you want to do first before anything else. And that's easier said than done because the world will impose its will on you. And so you have to fight for yourself. But if you can do that, then you become a full person. And I think that's the best reward. So stay assertive. Peace.